to English language and Ukrainian, but as all the speakers speak Ukrainians, maybe there's going to be questions, and then we're going to have to hear interpreters.
Translation available, and you can choose English because the whole panel will be in Ukrainian. А у вас також є можливість задати питання протягом
I would like to also mention that you have a Q&A icon where you can actually raise your questions. You can also raise your hand and we will be able to see what's happening. I would like to say hi to all of you for this panel about environment and social interest. And here we have very strong panel. In a moment, I'm going to introduce you all the participants one by one. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Olha Boyko. I'm a facilitator, and I also have set up a Climate Action Network, ECCA. It's a network of organization. Also was a part of Ukrainian Climate Network Council. I will be the moderator of the panel. We have to apologize on behalf of Viktor Havrilenko. Unfortunately, because of the blackout and shortage, he doesn't have a chance to join. But if you are wondering, we can share with you his presentation on the relevant problems and issues, and you can get acquainted with the materials after the panel is over. Besides, today we're gonna have Oksana Volosichuk, PhD in biology, environmental and nature conservation expert. We also have Serhiy Khrynyov, vice president of the Beekeepers Union. He also a serviceman. And we have Yuri Zadorozhny, environmental impact assessment specialist at the NGO Eco Club. We're also expecting Miss Olena Kravchenko, who is the executive director of the international charitable organization, Environmental People Law. She's going to be a part. And what's going to be the discussion about the environment and the social interest, about the social interest that in some cases may shift or may move the interest to the environment and preservation of the environment, whether it's possible. We're going to be discussing on different levels of interest, private, personal, states, European, and the overall interest from different perspectives, and using various examples. And the first question and the first dive deep into this topic, I would like to go through asking our speakers to share what kind of conflict of interest they're working with, what the audience should know, what are they doing at this moment in time. I could firstly invite to the mic Miss Oksana, if she doesn't mind to start, and then present your topic, and then we gonna unveiling and sharing connections, and then discussion will be on the way. But first, let's have a general call. Miss Oksana, please go ahead. The mic is yours, but please turn on the mic. Thank you so much for providing me this chance. It just so happened that the last 2 or 3 years, I'm forced to work with a conflict of the wind energy and nature. That's the clash, and that's type of conflicts of the interests that shouldn't have happened at all. This kind of conflict has emerged artificially, has been emerging artificially because once they're choosing the places where the hydro energy objects were placed, the interest of environment and nature wasn't taken into account at all. And it's important to understand why this kind of clash should not exist at all. First and foremost, we have to understand from which point in time we started talking about energy transfer, and why have we started this energy transfer. And then the best idea is to finally get to the climate neutrality and keep on reiterating the development of renewable energy is one of the sides of the coin. It's just one of one of the like pathways on the highway towards the climate neutrality. The second one is preserving nature, preserving environment, because the healthy ecosystem are the only parts that can absorb the CO2 and all the and it doesn't matter what kind of percentage of the generation we get. Otherwise, we won't be able to get the climate neutrality whilst not preserving the nature. Same thing, we have some Euro integration responsibilities in terms of getting the restored nature within the hydro generation, but we have a lot of Euro integration responsibilities to get the percentage of the protected lands. It's like wild nature, ecosystems. It's like those two simultaneous processes, they are of the same value. They're equal in our Euro integration missions that we have been placed on and our target in terms of getting climate neutrality. So we are being trying to deal with the conflict, the clash that's sort of quite quite a paradox, so to speak, because we can't uh, uh, choose one of the aims by sacrificing the other one. So, and there's an issue that we have to figure out on which lands at which we should keep on developing renewable energy industry. So we wouldn't have had this kind of like drastic fundamental conflicts and clashes. I feel like we will discuss this a little bit further in details later on, but I would like to provide a chance to speak to our panelists. So, did I get you right? The development of the renewable energy industry is just a part of it. It's like a fundamental, but just a part of the way. It's just a fragment. Okay, thank you. Mr. Sergey, I would like to invite you to tell us what are you dealing with and what are you working on. Thank you so much, Miss Olha and Elena. Thank you for the invitation because this is a chance to convey and relay the problems that and issues that we have in the beekeeping industry. And unfortunately, for a really long time, we don't have a very like proper response from the state and from the society as well. The society doesn't take active part in protection of bees, so to speak. I would like to mention that it's related the problem. What's the main problem? That we lack obviously the environment overall, the state of the environment is getting worse and worse, and the technological requirements into the specific poisoning of the farmlands, pesticides and insecticides that are harmful. And every year, annually, we have a mass poisoning of bees all over Ukraine. And I would like to mention that it's not only bees that are getting poisoned, it's all the other wild species of insects as well are being poisoned, and the biosystem is being damaged and destroyed, whether the field was spread like with pesticides or insecticides. So, as the Beekeepers Union of Ukraine, we are trying to have initiatives and pay attention to the changes to the legislation. We have made initiative and bills that should be regulated those issues to get
На сьогоднішній день
more
на жаль,
accountability for such
немає
acts?
прямої
Because unfortunately nowadays
за
there's some kind of like
травму
legal
і
criminal responsibility
також
that may be
буде
put on individuals for
санкція
bee
права
poisoning acts,
по
and the
адміністративній
sanctions that they
відповідальності за
have
такі
is
дії, в
barely
тому
nothing.
числі
It's
за
just minimal.
несаме
Taking into
використання
consideration that's
засобів
illegal
захисту рослин або
utilization of
з
specific
порушенням використання.
protection
Також
of the plants or
друге
like breach of the
проблематика це
procedures and
зменшення
SOPs.
масштабів
The second
посівів
problem is the decrease of the
сільськогосподарської класифікації
scale
та
of
недостатнє
the plants
використання
and
цілозахоронення.
the
І
lack of
також
utilization of
нераціональне, це
specific
третє
harvesting. And that's
питання,
the
це
third one is
третя
the
проблема. Це
third problem that we
нераціональне
have is
знищення великих
irrational
розмірів
damage in
надзвичайних
like
дерев
big scale
і
of
чагарників.
trees
Тобто
and shrubbery
дерев
that
це
provide
акація,
bees
липа,
like
клен,
honeys, like
кедр-ахатиця,
maple,
еліт,
uh,
вишина.
like
Це
species like
лістоноша і
hazelnuts
таке інше.
in the tree lines and so
На
on and so
жаль,
forth. Acacia,
оці
like
обсяги,
there's
вони
the whole
в
list
останні
of
роки
plants.
вони в
And for
рази
the last couple of
збільшились.
years,
Зрозуміло, чому
the
ситуація
scopes
і,
have increased, and it's obvious
на
because
жаль,
the
зменшення
situation nowadays is
контролю за цими
there's
діями.
less control in terms of illegal
І
acts.
відповідно
And
третя,
taking that into
як
consideration,
я
the
озвучив,
third
четверта
thing I
проблематика це
mentioned,
те,
and the
що
fourth
в
problem
державі
that we
не
are facing,
існує
that there's no
національної
national
багаторічної програми, яка б пов'язувала
long-term program,
питання
state-owned
розвитку
program that could
і
have
захисту
connected
бджільництва,
the development
збереження
and beekeeping
довкілля,
protection, the environment
покращення
protection,
навколишнього середовища і таке
or like
інше.
increase of the
Тобто
state and the
над
benefits
цим я
provided by the
пропоную
environment overall. I feel
також
like we need to
якби зупинитися і більше
stop
ще
on this and
поговорити на
just
цю
discuss it in great
про це.
details for the
Дякую
next
за
time we are
презентацію.
all discussing.
Ви
Thank you for this brief intro and
окреслили як
presentation of
пов'язані
the
з
separate
екологією,
topic that's
екологічним з'єднанням
very
покращення
much related
екології.
to the environment. I feel like it's also part of the
Представників
Euro integration.
представників різних
It's like
екосистем, так,
representatives of different ecosystems, including
і я би запросила
these plants.
Юрія
And I
поділитися
skipped Yuri. Yuri, would you like to share
тим
your
конфліктом
opinion? What kind
фортифікованого
of clash
ґрунта,
or conflict right
які
now you're
бачите
dealing
ви
with?
як певні
Um,
прив'язки до
Maybe it's
того, що
somehow
поділилися наші
connected
колеги,
to
можливо,
whatever
ви
is
відразу.
being shared by your
Дякую
colleagues.
за надане слово
Yes, thank you
запрошення.
for
Наразі ми
the
безпосередньо
invitation.
працюємо
Nowadays, I've been
над
directly involved
вдосконаленням
in the
процедури
enhancement
захисту
of
ґрунту, якщо це так
the
можна називати. І
procedure
надалі
of the
я
protection of the
спробую
environment, if we may
цю
call like
проблему
that, and
доцільно
then
розвивати в разі,
how
щоб
I will be
більш
kind of like
порозуміло
the
було
assessment of how it
сам
affects
інструмент,
the
але
environment,
важливо
because the
врахувати
tool
екологічні
gives us a chance to
аспекти
take into
не просто
consideration
для
ecological risks
громадськості,
during the
а
projects and
безпосередньо для
provides the
політиків, для
society to take
політиків.
part directly in the
Кожен
decision
рік
making.
ОВД
Every
зазвичай входить в
day,
внесення
this
загальних
tool
і
has a
змінюють
very
процедури
has been
підпорядкування
armed with
сектор
some
чи
kind of like
групи
separate sector
економічної
changing
діяльності
the
до
activities,
виключення
specific
окремих
economic activities,
справ з
including or
переліку таким, що
excluding some of
створюють
the projects
значний
from the list that
негативний вплив на
have a
довкілля.
very
І
quite
ці зміни
significant negative impact towards the
спрямовані
environment, and
на
those
покращення
changes
процедури
are phased to improve the
збільшення
procedure or increase of
зручності
some kind
для
of like
бізнесу чи
convenience
громадськості,
for business or for
покращення
the
прозорості, а не
society
те,
to
щоб просто
improve
усунути цю
transparency.
процедуру і
But in order
ускладнити
to
певні дії бізнесу.
reduce this
Новий
procedure
уряд
for the business,
наразі
new government
із
nowadays,
об'єднаним міністерством з
where the
питань
United
громадськості
Ministries,
національної
where you can see
безпеки
from the last
Девід
actions that they
Рассел
have done,
президент
are like following that
намагається послабити
deregulation model. They are
порушення
trying to
ОВД, які
to decrease
тимчасово
some
можуть
kind of
покращити ведення
regulation, so they
бізнесу і
might kind of
забезпечити
like
короткострокове
simplify the business
економічне
and provide
зростання.
some
Однак у
short-range economic
самій
growth, but
довгостроковій
within the
перспективі такі рішення
long-term
здатні
prospects, this kind of
призвести
decision
до
making may
незворотних
cause
екологічних
to
втрат і втрачання
irreversible
економічних
ecological
ресурсів.
changes and
І
hidden economic
пані
risks
Оксана може
that
розповісти
Miss
більше про
Oksana
місце
can tell you
самооборони
more
ЗОВ
about
і
the
на території Закарпатської
construction of the
області.
renewable
Існуючі методики
energy
сертифікації вже
industry on
завдано
within the
ушкоджень щодо
Carpathian
довкілля
regions,
і
and
насправді
how
дуже
they are
багато,
harmful
як мені
to the
показав
environment. You
багато
can actually
розрахунків
eyewitness in the
які
calculations
чудові
of
більшість
the damages
здійснюються
from the
на
military acts that
на
are
території
being
нашої держави, але
actually
немає
happening on the area of our site,
слідчих і
but we don't have any kind
правильних
of
методик,
like
які
next or
повністю можуть
proper
виміряти
methods
довкілля,
that might
або економічно
estimate
визнані
some kind of
стратегічними.
safeguard of how to actually protect
Отже,
the
можливо,
environment in the long run.
як
because nowadays this is kind of like a benefit or a right of the human being for like life protection or environment is outside of economic activities
безпосередньо неможливо
or its relevance. Like you can't calculate, you can't measure, you can't estimate this. But the changes that are being offered some kind of downgrade procedures, especially in this drastic, most complex time that our nature has been, environment has been undergoing irreversible damages and changes. It's some kind of PH paper. We can see throughout the year what kind of bills they are trying to implement, like our like logging, wood, in industrial parks establishment with the bill that they have implemented, especially the damage assessment done to the environment. They are trying to do a little bit of a change to the procedure to the industrial parks, and industrial parks are within the list of the activities that the European directives in terms of the environment. It's there. It's there. It's been presented by the Ministry of Energy. There's a draft of a bill in terms of the EU bill on the renewable energy industry that should simplify projects for the alternative energy substances, so like wind setups, and it also provides the norm of the social interest that should be on top. In terms of the priority for the government, the newly established ministry should provide by the end of the year to the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine the specific draft of the bill, how to the simplified option in terms of it's gonna be harmful to the environment, because my personally the procedure in the 2023 has undergone some kind of like simplification in terms of the terms, in terms of digitalization, and also taking into consideration all of the events that's been happening all over Ukraine. The European Committee for the second year around is emphasizing the necessity of provision, the utilization, how the assessment to the risks in the environment should be in all of their projects, for instance, restoration, renovation, having like less exemption or avoid exemption or remove some parts of it from the list. Also provide all interested parts to all the interested actors. You can actually double check the registry in terms of how the environment is being affected. The access is still limited. And in order to utilize it, you need to verify yourself. Hence, all the work right now is directed towards two pathways. One, to prevent any kind of harmful changes, and then improving and advancing procedures wherever it's possible. So the procedure would be more transparent, more convenient, and comfortable both for the society and businesses as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yuri, for providing this complex topic and explaining. There's a lot of things that we can reflect on. Miss Olena, I feel like you will be the one who can perfectly integrate all of these topics in one, and maybe tell a little bit about the Euro integration topic and just give them man one. Maybe you're working. Please go ahead.
Доброго дня, шановні колеги. Надзвичайно бачити рідних тут осіб, з якими
Hello, dear colleagues. I'm glad to meet all my colleagues. In fact, we fight together, we protect each other, we stand together shoulder to shoulder. I'm really pleased to see Miss Oksana, because I liked your speech at the Commons, because you protected the Carpathian Mountains in your speech. I adore your professionalism and the way you inspire people. What do we do? Let me quote a Soviet cartoon. There was a dog that lived in the house and he invited a wolf, and that wolf wanted to eat everything. And so our organization also does everything. And as much as possible, the most strategic topic that I'm working on that is actually hurting my soul, and we are pushing the authorities, and we provide all kinds of analytics regarding it. We advocate, we work in it. It is general architecture of ecological governance, and the latest Congress of the International Union of Ecology Protection, where there were lots of participants from all countries from around the world. So many participants identified the problem of architecture of ecological governance. Let me try to explain what that architecture of ecological governance, these are horizontal reforms that our organization is working on. First of all, it is state ecological control that covers everything. It's horizontal reform, institutional reform. It works on the mountains, on Carpathian Mountains. It works on bees. We deal with those for decades. We provide our consultations. We have court cases. It covers all kinds of issues. Clearly, another reform, horizontal reform, which is also relevant as much as state ecological reform. We show to the government how it should be. The whole policy development cycle should be present. It's about state monitoring of environment without knowing what's actually going on, what's the current state of it. Anything, forests, steppes, fields, we cannot make any strategies. Let me compare that to the family. If you don't know, if you have some issues with your house, maybe these are walls, maybe a roof leaking, you need to start with monitoring. First of all, you need to monitor the house where you are living in. Without that, you cannot plan any current or big repairs. The same goes for the key reform that we are advocating, that is monitoring of the environment state. In fact, the law was adopted, but it will come into force only after the martial law is lifted. So in what way can we continue strategies of biodiversity, of management of waste, because we don't know what kind of waste we have. In fact, we don't even have the term war waste or military waste. We have different interpretations for various terms. Destruction. Waste management means that some local authorities just collect that waste to some locations and that's it. So this is the second reform that we're working on, and the third one is obligatory responsibility for any crimes. For example, we don't have any responsibility for destroying beekeeping, for killing bees, which is number one actually all over the world. So lack of this principle of unavoidance of punishment means that we are one of the major nations that is number one as for deaths of population due to polluted air and polluted water. Lack of this principle of unavoidance of punishment leads to the fact that thousands of rivers, lakes, all kinds of water sites are available in our country, but we are still in top 10 with problems with access to the drinking water. Just imagine, we have like 63,000 of all kinds of water sites, but we are in top 10 with issues with access to drinking water. So the three horizontal reforms: state horizontal control, then monitoring, and then impossibility to avoid punishment are key reforms. Of course, for 7 years we were working on reforms where we actually switched to horizontal tools. Horizontal tools are effective. We introduced and implemented two directives. As for assessment of impact on environment, and we are co-authors of these instruments. All kinds of vested interests are fighting against our tools, but we do our best to keep those in action. We also co-authored the amendments to the legislation as for decreasing time frame limits, so we have the fastest procedure as for assessment of impact on environment, but it is the result of actually keeping it, because this assessment was to be cancelled at all during wartime. So we have lots of enemies that fight against us, and we do our best to follow all kinds of changes. As members of our team joke, soon we'll need to monitor not only all kinds of law drafts, but also law drafts on any other topic outside of environment. For example, some space legislation, because sometimes the legislator includes all kinds of amendments against the environment and assessment of environment. In 2017-2018, we were able to advocate in the 8th session of Parliament this law, and everybody stands against it. And if everybody's against it, it means that this law has balance, and we do our best to keep this balance. No laws on industrial parks, on timber market should destroy this balance and horizontal tools. So we work on those. Speaking about sectoral reforms, the basis for everything is transposing burden countryside directive. We won't be able to keep it, we won't be able to fight in Marhalivka, where the memorial complex is being built on the territory of Emerald Chain, and where the bodies of people just are put into the bogs. So we need to fight for the environment, and everything will just get worse. Speaking about waste management, nothing was improved since 2022. We analyzed all kinds of licensees, and the licenses were issued based on some conditional declaration. The register of licensees is just an Excel spreadsheet. Their technological capacities do not actually correspond to figures declared by the Ministry of Environment. So these are major directions of our work. Of course, we work in the field of ecocide since 2014, and we work even more since 2022. We cooperate with the International Criminal Court. We understand what changes should be implemented, what changes the Rome Statute needs, and Criminal Code of Ukraine, Criminal and Procedural Code of Ukraine. We have comprehensive vision for the Ecocide Criminal Code Article 441, 442, which is Environment, Criminal Acts, and also War Acts Against Environment. We have criteria designed for the Ecocide Criminal Code Article to be implemented. These criteria should be implemented both at the national and international level. We support the International Register of Damages. We advocate the drafting of the module and all its elements faster, because if you don't work faster, then half of this part of this module impact of the warfare on the environment, it may be implemented in 5 or 7 or 10 years, but as the Ministry of Environment get cancelled all the time, as eco-digitalization isn't going smooth, since we have lots of danger for information, either verified or not verified, we may lose it without proper provisions. It is kind of a moral responsibility of all our ecological movement to inspire Kyiv office of the International Register of Damages and its Hague office to design this module and to add all the necessary information, because we'll find ourselves in the situation similar to Kyiv. You know, all kinds of submissions were made by the physical and legal entities, and the Commission verified only 6% of those. We may face the same situation, just 6%. You know, COVID led to loss of billions of funding, and we may also lose billions that could be used for restoration, recovery of forests and nature. That's what we do. Thank you, Miss Alena. Really, you do a lot. All kinds of communities and systems. Dear colleagues, you've told us about yourselves. So participants and members of our panel should understand what's going on, should be clear to them that it's important to care to save the nature, the environment, but take into account the challenges that you shared and the never-ending transformations of the Ministry of Environment and its current place with the Ministry of Economy. So this is trend hints that the environmental issues aren't urgent, and it isn't something new. Even before 2022, before 2014, we could compare the environment to other directions, other scopes, but everything is interconnected. And all of us are beneficiaries, in fact, and part of the environment, though. If speaking to common people, not to the experts, but speaking to people that work in other fields, in what way would you show us the interrelations? Because I would like to ask you whether you fight, you protect the environment, but what does the environment fight for? Whom does the environment protect? Miss Elena? You know, the environment protects, first of all, it protects itself, first of all. For a long time, environment is just silent victim, but it's not silent victim anymore. If we take a look around, we'll see all kinds of typhoons, change of climate. The environment is screaming, people stop, I will kill you. If you're killing me, I won't be staying with you. I won't provide comfortable conditions for you. it starts screaming. All kinds of climate change start speaking on behalf. If you ask who needs the environment, all of us need it. For the officials to keep the Article 50, that is, life in clean environment. We should remember Article 50. If we speak about Article 13, then the environment tells us that we are owners of the minerals, and there are lots of critical minerals, but no lithium agreement should exist like that, where we make an agreement with one of our strategic partners, where there is no payment for water, while we are already in top 10 as for access to drinking water issues, where it's not the state tax service, where there is no rent or lease payments. Parks pay these taxes. Even Carpathian Biosphere Natural Reserve cannot pay land tax, but our strategic partners, one of the biggest and richest countries of the world, is not subjected to any taxes while using these lands to mine lithium. Then 96% of income of profits to our partners and just 4% to the country that is subjected to this war, where women are crying, parents are crying for their children. This is what environment tells us. The environment tells us that the quality and length of our life decreases. In fact, each Ukrainian loses his years of life. What do we know from the World Health Organization? They tell us that we have low quality of air and drinking water. These are 2 points that catastrophically decrease length of our life. When we speak about beekeeping, bees and beekeeping are decreasing because the environment is degrading, and bees tells us we are an indicator of the environment quality. We will disappear. You will have nothing. You won't have good quality life, neither you nor your children nor next generations.
Дякую. Єлена.
Okay, thank you.
Продовжуйте.
Then,
Пані Олено, чудово
Олена.
окреслили
Miss Elena,
проблематику.
you
Я, напевно, хотіла би ще
spoke
так
great.
схематично
Let
трошки
me also
пояснити, кого
explain in a
захищає
few
довкілля,
words, in a few
чому
schemes,
захист
who's
довкілля – це
protected
завжди
by
про
the
гроші.
environment, why
Тобто
protection of the environment means
недаремно
always funding.
зараз за кордоном
And,
захищають, і в багатьох
it
країнах
is being
Західної
protected
Європи
abroad.
виділяється
For this reason, lots of
мільярди
countries in the
євро
Western Europe
на
spent billions of
відновлення
euros to
трансформованих
recover
екосистем.
previously transformed
Це країни, які
ecosystems.
вміють рахувати
These are
гроші,
countries
і
that
вони
know
розуміють,
how
від
to
чого вони
count
це
the money.
роблять.
They know why they do this.
Це країни, які
These are
змінили свою
countries that
природу, і в них
changed
майже не
their nature,
залишилося природних
that
екосистем.
have
До початку
almost no
ХХ століття,
natural
і вони
ecosystems left
відновлювали
as
фактично
of
з
end of the
нуля.
20th century, and they had
Україна
to restore
значно
them from the
успішніше
scratch.
на сьогодні
Ukraine is, in fact,
стані знаходиться.
in better position
Ми
as of
маємо
today.
багато
They have
збереженої
many
природи,
preserved
зокрема, це і природа
real
Карпат, захід
nature,
Процекову.
like
Це
the
то
Carpathian
багатство,
nature.
яким ми
This is
відрізняємося від
the wealth that we
європейців.
have, and
І
which differs us from the European
фактично ми зараз
Union
намагаємося
countries.
знищити те, на
But we are trying to
відновлення
destroy
чого ми ніколи не
what
будемо мати стільки
we
грошей,
we
скільки
would
мають
never
економіки
have
розвинених країн
money
світу.
for
Зараз я би хотіла просто
that
розказати
the
таку
developed
баєчку,
countries have.
якою я завжди своїм
Let me tell you a
студентам
story that
пояснюю, що
I'm
таке
telling to my
екосистемні послуги
students
і
what are
чому
ecosystem services
довкілля це
and
завжди про
why the
гроші, це
environment
завжди про
means money,
економіку.
means economy all the time.
Як сова
Let
впливала
me
на добробут
tell you
і економіку
a story
Англії
about an
19
owl
століття?
influencing
Ми
the
знаємо, що в Англії тоді
welfare in
багато було
England in
овець,
the 19th century.
вівці були
You know,
основою
there were lots of sheep in England in the 19th century.
тваринної тканини,
They were basis for
високоякісної
tweed
шерстяної. І це фактично була
production,
одна із
high
тих
quality,
галузей економіки, які тримало Англію на високому рівні.
high
Питання,
quality
як сова
fiber, and
впливає на
it
економіку
was one of the
Англії?
basis of the English
А
economy.
сова,
What was the impact of the owl?
що їдять
You
вівці?
know,
А
what
вівці
do sheep
їдять
eat? They
конюшину.
eat,
Е, Конюшину запилює хто? Джміль. Джмелі, власне, це
they
ті
eat
комахи, напевно, єдині, які
clover,
здатні
and
запилити такі рослини, як
what
конюшину.
uh,
Хто розорює
it is
гнізда
humblebee that
джмелів?
is needed
Вони роблять свої гнізда
for
в
clover,
землі. Миші.
and the
Миші
mice
розорюють гнізда
destroy
джмелів. А
humblebees'
хто полює
nests
на
in the
мишей?
ground, and who
Сова.
kills
Сова, яка
bees,
живе
who
в
kills mice?
кедрових лісах Англії.
It is an
І
owl
якщо не
that
буде
lives in
цієї
oak
сови,
forests. So without an
ось
owl,
цього хижака, який знаходиться на
this
вершині
bird
трофічної
that
піраміди
is
і контролює
on the top of
чисельність
this
ось цих
pyramid and
мишей,
controls
не буде
quantity of
джмілів,
mice,
не буде
then there are no
конюшин, не
humblebees,
буде
then there is
шерсті.
no clover,
Оце,
then
власне, є ось цей
there
ланцюг,
is
який пояснює, як
no wool.
природа впливає
So
на
this
наш
is the
добробут.
chain that
Чому це завжди
how the
про
nature
гроші,
impacts
чому це
our
завжди про
wealth. So it
економіку.
is always
І
about money,
недаремно
the
сьогодні
economy.
вже практично всі
So today,
екологічні, економічні розвинені країни
ecological, these services are monetized.
будь-яка діяльність,
They are
яка
assessed.
проводиться
Any
або
kinds of
планується
activities that are being
проваджуватися,
implemented
вона
or are going to be
проходить
implemented
і ось цю
have to
оцінку,
undergo
які
this
екосистемні
assessment,
послуги ми
which
можемо
system
втратити
services we
через
may
те, що ми
lose
втратимо
if we
природних
lose
екосистем,
natural
які нам
capture
надають
ecosystem
ці
that
послуги.
provides these services.
Ну, власне, от
So
це такий приклад, який
this is an example,
простіше
an easy
дозволяє
one,
зрозуміти, як пов'язана
for you to
природа з
understand how
нашою
nature is
економікою.
connected to the economy.
Іноді здається, що дуже
Sometimes we
дорого і
think that
безглуздо
it's too
охороняти
expensive to
природу. Але це
take care
зовсім не так,
about the nature, to
тому
protect
що
it,
природа дає нам
because the
надзвичайно
nature gives
кількість
us full range of
екосистемних послуг,
ecosystem
про які ми навіть можемо
services
не
that you might
здогадуватися.
not even know about.
Дякую, пані Оксано. Дійсно, я думаю, що
Thank
тому
you
я
so much, Miss
частина
Oksana. I do believe that
проблеми
there's a part of the issues, the problem that's so hard to fight. The story that you shared with us is it's quite memorable, and people can actually relate to it. I would like to ask our speakers who would like to add something to this or reiterate, or there's something. I would like to continue the thought of Miss Olena when she was mentioning about people on the health factor that pays about the protection and preservation of the environment, plays the norms and regulations that should be upheld by the users of the soil resources, water resources, and air, including. So the ones who are the government officials can make some deals or drafts and whatnot, but the users are the one who bring the most danger if we take into consideration beekeepers, the farmers, unfortunately, are not upholding the norms that are especially elaborated bills. The keeper union of Ukrainian is the one that started developing, and 338 from the 19th of February 2019 in terms of the beekeeping issues, where we had ratified even instructions in terms of how to set up the specific poisoning that was done for the plants and bees once they fertilize and insecticides and pesticides were utilized. In that specific argument, we have elaborated the algorithm to prevent the poisoning from ever happening again, to prevent the environment poisoning and damages done to the soils and farmlands. Referring to how the farmer should do and what kind of rules they should uphold. So the norms and SOPs and requirements in terms of the pesticides and insecticides utilization. This is crucial. We understand that the bee is like a pH paper, like the first thing to show that there's a disaster upcoming or something happened. The farmer has utilized pesticides or didn't inform that that's a whole another issue. And there's just like overdose of the utilization of the active component. So all of those pesticides, insecticides are being drenched into soil, plants, they absorb to the water, evaporate, and if bees start dying, what do you think? Like, how are the people all over the field feeling? What's going to be happening with them? What kind of consequences we may have to the people. So we are obviously emphasizing how harmful it's going to be to the health first and foremost, both the people as well. The farmers are not upholding those norms. They and we're going to the courts, right? So we have two court decisions, like cases where court has and they had to pay to the beekeeper like 50k UA per each. But we are not going to strengthen like criminal or administrative responsibility. It's not our aim to put them into specific frames and encircle them. It just provides good neighboring norms, like neighbors, like farmers is gonna do pesticide, insecticide, and informing both the society, neighbors, and beekeepers so they can provide some measures to either cover, shelter, or whatever. Just point one, the bees. And once again, not the authority or the farmers are not always aware that there are some beekeepers within or the area. We have solved it. We have simplified the procedure in terms of registering the beekeepers registry, and so it's really easy. Person addresses, fills in the paperwork, they provide his information into the books, and then they are to the registry, then state authorities. The beekeeper services are this location, and then they have to relocate, they have to provide where they're going. And if, for instance, the local authorities getting information that there's going to be some pesticides utilized, they will inform this and that beekeeper that this is going to happen. So from our perspective, the problem is lies within the cooperation and coordination, beekeeper, and then the local authorities, and then the farmers. So in between those three, and we are trying to conduct workshops and seminars where we try to engage all of the aforementioned participants, and we are trying to convey and relay our opinion that only in cooperation, only by harmony of this relations, you can preserve the lives of the species and increase the harvest and preserve the nature.
Дякую
Знаєте,
дуже.
я
Так.
до цього би хотіла додати.
Thank you. Actually, I would like to add something to this
В деяких
point.
країнах
For instance, in some
Західної
countries,
Європи,
like Western European
Бразилії,
countries and
в
Brazil and Argentina,
фермери
the farmers
доплачують
are paying
пасічникам
on top for the beekeepers, like the paying separately.
послуги
To
за те,
the
що ці
services
бджоли
that
завоюють їхні поля.
their bees are
Розумію, що зараз
considered. I do
багато
understand that we are talking about the cultures that should be pollinated by the insects, and that it's not done just for whatever reason. They're being done by the insects. It's bee or wild insect. It be both as the rules. So after pesticide, insecticide, you can see not only the problem, this can be a problem on the ones those farmers will be running to the beekeepers and paying for them just to pay to have the beekeeping services on their fields just to pollinate them. Otherwise, they're gonna have to swap the culture and then have some kind of like wind pollinating or some kind of grain cultures, because there's not gonna be anyone to pollinate them. Also, they brought that we don't have any kind of discussion, like public discussion towards that, and our beekeepers are they shop with the one who are dictating the conditions. So the roles have been reversed. Unfortunately, the events of last time, the war is distracting. Obviously, it's straightforward. But on behalf of the Beekeepers Union in 2025, in February, I've made a petition to the president. I've described the problem with beekeepers. There's no obviously the bills that we've been working the way they had like a draft of the bill in 2021 on new law.
Вони є не тільки індикатором стану нашого довкілля, а вони є індикатором суспільного інтересу до реформування
Interest in terms of reforming the environmental policy. If we're talking about the social interest, it's indicating the political interest in the parliament and presidential republic for the MPs and others, because for years, in order to solve this problem, because it's such a big problem, but it's a part of the bigger problem, the whole chem safety reformation. Chemical safety reformation, the draft bill about chemical safety and pesticides, it hasn't been able to go through the parliaments for decades. Like it's been 9 years since the green and white books of problems and solutions for the state control. The corrupt business is not interested in having a transparent, simple, clear, concise, like with mean corrupt risks system owned by the state, and actually witness how the farmers are not like informing and pollinating their fields with very cheap pesticides brought illegally, God knows how, like smuggled basically, and we don't know about them. And those pesticides are harmful not only to the bees, and you were all points saying that are extremely harmful chemical substances, including pesticides, are incredibly harmful for the human well-being and health. And medics once again point out with public health is also very collected to us, so we can maybe bring it to the public interest. So it's not about butterflies. We also have to protect butterflies, but it's also about butterflies and about your health as well. So pesticides are being passed through with mother's milks for 4 generations. If every mother is unaware what kind of harm that she like being contaminated by like pesticides within apples or whatever she ate, how it's being transferred to her kids, to her grandkids, to her great grandkids. Maybe there's going to be some more interested within the society and public, and the ecotourism is not as developed as it should have. Of the ecological tourism, and there's some kind of like love to the environment, being proud that we were able to maybe like there's some kind of worst economic society were able to provide some really old ancient woods in Carpathians. It's better preserved in Ukraine than in Romania, for instance. Those ancient woods, because they weren't logging there. We have like a priceless heritage, and if we log it in right now and cut it off in 200, 300 years, our descendant won't be able to see. You have to keep on telling this to the guys as a message. And if we try to knock on their doors and explain the economic value, as Oksana has mentioned, the ecological, aesthetic, like moral value, and just from a pragmatic perspective, neither of like there's going to be the best PTSD treatment. Just our military speaking with the environment is much better thing than talking to whatever psychologist. Just leave the soldier within the nature, just speaking with birds chirping, leaves whispering. It's going to be more pragmatic and helping more than any kind of psychologist, psychiatrist, you know it. So we have to remember those things, and we have to convey that to the society. And once we're going to be able to convey it, we will be out of the bubble of the nature environment protecting way. We have only 23%. Ms. Oksana said that against the building of renewable energy units, like with actual destruction of forest. No, 23% was up for. So they're up for, and 28 are categorically against on the vantage points higher than, and then someone saying that we need a dialogue and try to find compromise. And what would we like to? We would like to have 50-60% against, right? To preserve the Carpathian mountain range, right? So we are missing some percentage. This is lacking. And we're talking about controlling the farmers. So we are the food basket for Africa and Asia. Why do you think so? Why are we the best markets for Africa? Yeah, if we can have like they have the best parks. So if they can have best parks, why can't they just put some efforts and use their farmers and work? Why can't we achieve, even though Ukraine is has 35% of biodiversity of all Europe combined, so 35% of like 73% of the soil that's being utilized for farming, and we didn't get like 30%. Yeah, we have to get like we are not getting the percentage. Why? Because someone decides and someone is beneficial on a bigger biopolitical scale to call Ukraine the food basket. not the country of greenery, of wild nature. We have 35%, whereas 1/4 of all soils, like from like with specific components, like 1/4 like of the black soil. I don't know how much is going to be left after Russians have invaded the country, but before the Russians emerged, we had the statistics, high percentage of humans, and now we're being thrown to like post-USSR state of governing, sort of like a farming, and we are coming back to this spring silent. What's Silent Spring, the Silent Spring book, where the environment protection started, and then the ecology movement started to protect the ones who are protecting the nature, and then they started like sprinkling the gardens without any kind of regulations, procedures, alerts. And the pesticides in agriculture, like farming, insecticides, not only the beekeeping was destroyed, but also whole like districts of states. And the cancer diseases were emerging. It's like last 50 years of US development. So we are 1 century behind the US. They've already been through that a century behind, and we are thrown back a century behind by our farming, by not having a dialogue, because we can't withstand the farmers. We can't fight with those who are against building the renewable energy industry. But the balance, this dialogue of all of those businesses of the society and state authorities, like we don't have those, right? We don't have, like we have the structure, the environment protection structure right now is completely destroyed. It's leveled down. It's not only by reducing the central authority that was supervising it. Like what is the results of the administrative reform? We were trying to provide a delegate them, like this is yours, this is your treasure, this is your land, this is your soul. Just try to make a deal with the land that you're gonna have this balanced development towards benefits to the publicity, social, and environment. And against that, we have people who are doing it for their own benefit. And then in the courts, we are seeing how much has been sold to whoever by this local governments. And this is the result of the administrative reform. Like as you see, like we have a big country and you have to love your river, you have to love your word, you have to love and treasure whatever hurts for us. But it's not for them, it's just money. Money for myself, money for them is money for myself, money for the jeep, money for the apartment. And then you ask them like, what's next? The answer is like, I have enough for my own life. Just for my life, it's gonna be enough. This is what hurts for me, maybe a little bit slightly emotional, so I do apologize. But this is the social interest. On one hand, there's like a tiny little bubble that has a very concentrated interest, but out of the bubble, it's slightly different. Thank you so much, Ms. Olena. I'd like to summarize the panel. Obviously, the way you look at the environment, your perspective, and there was also a question in the group chat, we can describe it by a word like a wholesome view, because the environment is health, there's a practical dimension about environment, and it describes about the change of the paradigm that
Очевидно, в Ольги світлі
Uh,
проблеми.
Probably Olga has problem with power outages.
Ага, так. Я зараз спробую зв'язатися з
I'm
пані
gonna
Ольгою.
try to reach out to Olga.
А зараз вам пропоную тоді відповісти, можливо, на
I
питання,
suggest you to
яке
answer
в
the question.
чаті поставили. Їх
I would like
тут
to
декілька від пані Оксани.
you to try to answer questions
Що
from
я
the chat.
вернулась віддали, то світло.
Sorry, I'm back. Really, there was a
Перепідключалася.
power
Але,
issue. I
власне,
reconnected.
щоб закінчити думку і підвести також
Let me
зв'язок до тих питань,
finish my idea
бо з
and
одного
to
боку,
provide connection to the
був коментар і
questions.
питання
There was a comment and question
просто пане Оксани, про те, що ми, як людство, ніби як
that
особливості
we,
цього
the
вугілля,
humanity,
перестали дивитися
especially
цілісно
those who
довкілля і
live in
кажуть,
the
що
cities,
воно
we
пустинне,
don't
що воно
consider the
таке, а
environment
воно це ми, так? Тобто є
as
ось те.
comprehensive
З іншого
and
боку, є ось ті
as something
підходи,
comprehensive and also part of us because we like living in the cities separate from it. But there's another way through
через конкретні
these
фінансові якісь приклади або
services, through
приклади зі
some
собою, так?
financial
Можна
examples.
пояснити людям їхнє
This is the way to explain people, to remind them what their place in the environment chain.
що виглядає так,
Let me
мало
explain what
бути,
it means.
власне,
It
захист
feels
довкілля
like
не
the
вузькопрофільною
environment
темою,
protection shouldn't be
ось,
some
між
niche
експертами обговорюється,
expert
наскрізною темою,
discussion, but should be
якій
a
в
cross-cutting
входять
discussion
всі
that
інтереси.
includes
Тут ми
all kinds of
підбираємося
interests.
в тому числі до
So we are
теми
approaching
євроінтеграції,
the
виходячи
European
поза межі
integration
України. Тобто
topic,
ми трохи поговорили про
either
рівень
connected to Ukraine
особистий,
or in general.
про
So we spoke
рівень
about
добрих
some personal
сусідських,
level,
Сергій згадував,
some good neighborhood level,
того, як
which
це
is
може
quite
виглядати. У
interesting
нас є ще таке
in what
геополітичне
way it
добре
should
сусідство,
look
так?
like.
З одного
There is
боку
also
є війна,
geopolitical
з іншого боку
good
є
neighborhood. There is war
справжній
and
покроковий рух зі
there is
своїми
step-by-step
викликами до
movement
Європейського
with its
Союзу.
own challenges
І
in
відповідно
order to
наступне
access the
питання
European
порожнього,
Union. So
воно
another
пов'язано
question for you
з
to
тим,
think over.
власне, як ми в час війни
In what way you,
можемо
during the
зберегти
war,
себе, зберегти
can
країну, не втратити своє
save
право на
yourself,
найкраще
can
довкілля,
keep
і при
your right
цьому
to the
не
safe environment
стати
without
дуже мені теж сподобалось, пані Оксана,
becoming,
підсвітили ось цей радянський підхід
as you,
нересурсний.
Oksana, told us
Ми це є наша
about that
наша
resource
електрика, яку
Soviet
ми, можливо,
approach,
будемо так продавати, не факт, що
like
вона взагалі піде на внутрішній
we
ринок,
may sell some
відновлювана електрика. І ми це наші,
power,
значить, наша пшениця,
power
наші
from
продукти, які виробили. Ось ви
clean
виростили,
sources.
продали, ось вам,
We
будь ласка,
sell also
назов.
wheat, like we grow it and we
Як
sell it
взагалі, чи бачите
abroad.
ви
In what
врахування
way
всіх цих різних
can you
інтересів,
take into
виходячи з нашої
account
реальності
all
зараз і
these
наших прагнень на
interests,
найближчі
including
десятиліття?
our
Тож запрошую,
aspirations
якщо є
and
бажання,
our
пана
interests
Юрія, бо
within the
давно
next
не
decades?
включалися.
Let
Якщо
me
хочете
also
вже
ask Mr.
відрефлексувати
Yuri,
це питання
would you like to share your
інтеграції
ideas,
різного
speaking about
рівня
integration
інтересів на шляху
and the level of
України,
interests
враховуючи, де
on
ми є
our
зараз,
European
ті
accession,
реальності, про які ви розказали?
but under the ongoing
В будь-якому разі,
conditions?
які
Anyway,
зазначали раніше,
it was
це
mentioned
частина
that
довкілля,
people are
і
part of the
ми
environment.
живемо в цьому оточенні, і
We
у
live in
нас
it.
мінімальні потреби їсти,
We have
спати,
some
спати.
minimal
І
needs:
тому будь-яка людина
eat,
мислить
sleep, drink.
короткостроково, незалежно від свого
So
рівня, не знаю,
we have like
освіти
short-term
чи посади, яку
thinking,
вона займає. В
depending
будь-якому випадку у
on
нас
our education, on our
необхідні
post, but still
короткострокові,
we are
щоб
mostly short-term
досягнути вирішення
thinkers.
проблем, короткострокові
We try to
перспективи,
reach some
це
short-term
потребує теж
objectives.
стратегічне
We
мислення,
don't have strategic
визначення
thinking
стратегічних
to
питань.
deal with
І
strategic matters.
сьогодні курс на
In
євроінтеграцію
particular, the
якраз
European
і
integration course,
вирішує цю
it
проблему.
is something that
Дає
actually
змогу
deals with this issue.
уряду, який мислить, щоб
It
забезпечити
provides
людей
the capacity to the
дати їм
government
місце
that
видовища,
attempts
дати
to
якісь
provide
пріоритети і цінності.
just
цьому
bread and
процесі.
entertainment to people.
Так,
So
для
European
цього, в принципі,
integration
були
process
прийняті
gives
Раніше, в 17
new
році,
priorities to the government.
запропоновані
So in
такі
2017,
інструменти з оцінки впливу на
new
довкілля,
assessment
стратегічні
tools were implemented,
оцінки, які
like strategic
передбачають
assessment of the
якесь
environment,
стале,
which
збалансоване
provide
природокористування
for some stable,
для суб'єктів господарювання, які, в принципі,
but
це
also
цікавить, бо у них будь-яка ідея бізнесу це
good
заробити грошей.
use of the
Конфлікт з цим
environment, but it
пов'язаний.
is not good for business because they care
Інформаційні
about the
інструменти
money,
для
as many
імплементації
money,
які є
as
в
many
Європейському
profits as
Союзі,
possible.
вони
So thanks to the
вводяться
European Union, these tools were implemented and they exist.
Дякую, Юрій. Тобто ви
Thank
кажете
you,
про те,
Yuri.
що була
So you tell us that
імплементована на рівень державний питання
it
цінностей.
was implemented at the state level,
Додатковий
and these
шар,
are the values, like the
Так, ну дивіться,
additional level of
законопроекти,
values.
які зараз
Yes,
пані
even
Олена
those
розповідала,
law
там про
drafts that Ms. Elena
використання
told us
пестицидів,
about
гербіцидів,
pesticides, herbicides use,
природополивання екологічної
about
інспекції, вони ускорені
reforms of the ecological
постійно
inspection,
відкладаються.
they're
Реформування,
postponed
знову ж таки,
annually.
територій Смарагдової мережі, вони, як бачите,
Reforms of the
законопроект ще
Emerald
досі не
Network
прийнятий, і він, мабуть,
territories,
буде ніколи
this
прийнятий.
law
Тому що
draft was
законопроект
not adopted and it might not be adopted,
Працюємо.
but we are working on it. We are
Ну, от це чудова новина, але в
making
будь-якому випадку
drafts.
вони постійно відкладаються.
Good news, but still, it's getting
Можновладцями.
postponed all the time by the
Бо
officials
цінність все-таки у них полягає в розвитку
because
економіки,
they
щоб
care
люди
about
просто
economic
мали
development
забезпечений
for
мінімальним
people
якимось потребам,
to have
щоб не було ніяких
their basic needs covered,
хвилювань в людей, так
for people
сказати. Але після цього в будь-якому
not
випадку
to
разом
start
з
any
просто, не
turmoils.
знаю, рівнем життя
But anyway, as
в
the
людей виникають нові
life
потреби.
level grows,
Це
people
в туризмі
have
екологічному,
new
щоб
needs,
дихати
like
киснем
ecological
повітрям, щоб
tourism,
була чиста вода,
some
щоб можна було
clean air, clean
відпочити
water,
на природі.
some
І рано чи пізно все-таки до цього дійде, і люди в своїй свідомості
places for
зрозуміють
vacation,
це і
and
змінять свої пріоритети.
it is about changing people's minds, and
Такий
people change their
євроінтеграційний
priorities
процес
then.
це
It is kind of a European
інструмент, який
integration
прискорить
process. It is the
ці
tool
зміни
to fasten,
і
to make
предоставить
these changes
всіх
fast.
потрібних інструментів для цього.
And in this way, we can use all the necessary
Дякую,
tools.
Сергій.
Okay, thank you, Serhi.
Да, я абсолютно підтримую думку
So, Serhi,
спікера.
I fully support the
the
idea of the previous speaker, and I would like to say that the European integration mechanism and introduction of the European norms has a positive impact on beekeeping in particular and bee saving and the environment issues. An example, currently in Europe it is prohibited to use a number of pesticides that are believed to be most dangerous. It means that there are European resolutions, but unfortunately, the active ingredients are still being used in Ukraine. They're still being registered for use on plants, and state authorities simply ignore or appeals that registration of these substances should be prohibited in Ukraine. In 2018, the Beekeeper Association designed a resolution draft for the Cabinet of Ministers, and we were present at the meeting of the Cabinet of Ministers. We held a presentation there, but that was it. If the European integration is real, if proper norms are applied, European norms, then it would have positive impact on the environment.
Так цікаво, пане Сергію,
For sure.
ви раніше розповідали
Okay,
про
Mr.
те,
Serhiy
що
told us that
не те, що немає норм,
it's not about the lack of norms, but
якоїсь такої відповідальності,
it's lack of responsibility.
власне, слухатися тих норм, і
So
використовувати.
we need
Як
to
думаєте, що
apply
що
current
змінює,
norms.
що
What will change
з'являться ще
then
якісь норми?
if we just adopt more norms? Alongside the European integration procedures, the accountability will grow. There is direct accountability for killing bees killing all kinds of bugs, animals. We have examples from Germany.
Там дуже бережно ставляться
You know,
до
people
збереження
care about
комах,
keeping
свійських комах, адже бджола в
the
нас
bugs.
є
You
одна
know,
з двох свійських
bee
комах,
is just one of
її
two
потрібно
bugs that can be
захищати і
kept in farming.
друга свійська
That's
комаха,
why we
я
need to
думаю,
protect
що
it.
так і
Another
знають
one, I
слухачі, що це
think you
є
know it.
сіткопряд.
This is
Ми маємо таких тільки свійських комах, і відповідно маємо вживати заходів щодо їх
the
збереження.
silkworm. So we
І
have
не
only
тільки
two
збереження. Спілка
bugs that are used by
закликає
people,
і уряд, і
and we need to protect
громадськість,
them.
спільноту,
So
різні
Beekeeper
організації,
Association calls
щоб
people,
і
community
відбувався
authorities
розвиток
to
галузі.
continue with
Тобто
the
не просто
development of our
збереження і все, а і збереження, і розвиток.
of
Тільки
our
тоді буде
work
віддача
and
економічна,
to
буде
save bees that will lead to the economic effect, to the increase of production of not only honey, but all kinds of products made by bees, necessary to keep people healthy, to prevent all kinds of diseases. Besides, the honey export brings some cash to the government. These are taxes paid by the beekeepers that have big amounts of honey produced. That's why we believe in positive impact, but we should be involved. Nothing will happen without us.
Можна винести як окрему цитату.
It's kind of a
Хочу запитати
quotation, in
пані
fact.
Оксану, тому що у нас
Let
тут
me ask
ситуація
Miss Oksana,
з
you know,
вітрами в Карпатах, що з одного боку є аргументи про те, що
there are some
потрібно довше
arguments with the wind generation in the Carpathian
енергоспоживлення, а
Mountains.
є
We need
вже
to improve
євроінтеграція
our
в
energy
платформу
grid,
зеленої
you know.
джерела енергії,
We
а
should
з
switch
іншого
to
боку є так само євроінтеграційні
these
зобов'язання
clean energy
природоохоронним
sources,
територіям, які
renewable
повинні
energy,
бути.
but we have
Ну
also
і
this
це
obligation as
ще
for
не
natural
згадуючи
resource
те, що ми
keeping.
проговорили в першій
Not
половині
only
про взагалі
we should also
необхідність
remember
і
that there is
невідворотність
necessity
зв'язку нашого з довкіллям. Ви
to
казали раніше
understand
про
our
запит
direct relation to the
про те,
environment.
щоб
You mentioned
розмістити, де
that
працювати. Можливо, хочете про це детальніше
there are
розповісти, або
ways to
якщо
identify
реагувати на ось цей термін,
sites
здавалось
to
би, логічний,
construct
так, тобто
wind
здавалось би, логічно, що
generation.
треба будувати, але є одне але.
It's logical idea that we need renewable source of energy,
Я
but
так
still,
само розглядаю євроінтеграційний
you know, I also
процес
consider the
дуже
European
позитивно. Для нас в
accession process,
генеруванні
European
ось
integration is
того
something
конфлікту,
positive.
який би
It
не
is
мав
the way
бути
to
між
regulate
розвитком
this conflict which
відновлювальної
we
енергетики і
shouldn't have
збереженням
had
природи.
between
Тому
renewable
що навіть
energy and
коли
keeping
Об'єднана
our
Європа
nature
нас
intact.
розглядає
Even the
як
United Europe
потужний ресурс
considers
для
us as a
розвитку
strong resource
відновлювальної енергетики,
for renewable energy
вона не
growth,
вимагає
but still
від
they do
нас
not demand
робити це
us
ціною
to
природних екосистем.
do this
І це ми дуже
at the
бачимо
cost of our
чітко, зокрема, на
natural
роботі знову ж таки
ecosystems. We
Єврокомісії,
can
яку ми
clearly see
зараз
this in
бачили,
the
оцінки,
report
які
by
ми
the
знову
European Commission.
поставили, і ми
We
побачили, що
received
якраз по
the
відновлювальній
grades, and
енергетиці, ну, ми,
you
напевно,
could see that in
відділимо
renewable
з
energy
усіх інших
we are
країн, які
leading
сьогодні
compared
оцінювалися,
to other countries
і ми
that
отримали
were
4 бали.
assessed, received 4 points.
А в сегменті довкілля от ми
But
вже
in the
роки
environment,
пасемо задніх
we
і
are
залишаємося на
the
позиції
last one.
наслідків.
We receive
От
2
енергетика
points
у
only.
нас іде
So
добре,
energy,
дуже
power,
добре.
it's
Ну,
good.
ми фактично відмінники, а в
We
збереженні
have good
довкілля
results,
у нас Європа
but
так само
the
оцінює
environmental
як
issues,
злочинців.
we receive bad
І
grades
знову таки
here.
це якраз ті речі, про які
These
згадувала
are
пані Олена, це те, що ми ніяк
those moments
не
mentioned by Miss
забезпечуємо
Elena
те, що ми
that we do
дотримуємо
not
того,
implement
що мало би бути в законі про смарагдову
this
мережу.
countryside
Це
and
дуже багато
bird
інших законів,
directive,
зокрема,
part
і
of the
про
Emerald Chain directive,
екологічний контроль, і
and
все
there is also
інше, про
ecological
що йшла
control
мова, моніторинг і
and
так далі, і так далі. Це все
monitoring
те
and
базове законодавство, яке би нам
all
дозволило наблизитися
basic legislation
до
that would
тих
allow
ідеалів,
us
які
to
сьогодні є
approach the European standards.
З початком війни
Since the beginning of the war, the energy through Europe also understood that they should switch from the Russian gas use, so they adopted this Repower EU program, which actually includes several directions of work: increase of energy effectiveness, diversification of gas supply, but also growth of renewable energy sources. In fact, Ukraine is part of this plan, and we also get ready for prompt development of renewable energy. But how to do this without hurting the nature? Proper ways to select proper sites for renewable energy production. We need to identify zones for prompt green energy development. These should not be territories of natural reserves, territories of Natura 2000, which are Emerald Network territories, and these are not territories with a difficult landscape like mountains. So we can see that those processes that happen in the European Union, they happen at the same time in Ukraine. And on some cases, business shows some territories without taking into account the environmental protection interest. Then these territories should not be used. The only way to regulate the situation is to come down from the mountains, to leave the valuable territories of the Carpathian Mountains, and to work on assessment of zones of from development. They can be in the Carpathian region. It has some strong capacity, in particular the adjacent regions aren't that rich in wind, but still we can find some territories to develop this project without creating any conflicts. So we have the solution. It was discussed, but the business should stop from these direct attempts to continue with what they started. They should stop doing this. They should stop creating unnecessary conflicts, because it is kind of a dangerous situation, especially for other industries that could be developed in my region. You know, the Закарпатська область is a touristy place, and if we implement these projects, they would change the Carpathian Mountains. We will not have them anymore. We cannot allow it. Europe should help us in this, because there are some processes. You can see them, like not only in the energy development, but also in saving the nature.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting. Miss Oksana or Lena can continue about the mechanisms to how you can actually select those areas and what kind of the path is the destiny of that decision that hasn't been innovating and innovative and has been here for a long time. I don't think it's destiny or fate. It doesn't have a very simple fate. For half a day, like day before yesterday, we were in the appealing court of appealing, from my own into like gut feeling, and the decision will be pro-Carpathian or for the preservation of Carpathian mountain range. And all in the prospect, both me and Oksana will go to the High Court, Cassation Court of Kyiv. The head judge has made a decision against the preservation of Svidovets. And our journalists said that she was pro biggest resort and about preservation of another unique. So the head judge, the same one, the same behavior we might expect, but we're going to be fighting till the end. So our consciousness is clear and we can sleep with ourselves and just. But once again, there's a question to the head farmer, not to dwell on those areas and zones, because I'm not an expert on energy and power, and we have an expert from the renewable energy industry. But from our perspective, we can define this case to be more professional and more clear as how the eco-activist, no matter how rightful legal expert you should be as an eco-activist, you still have to be clear and concise. Maybe you remember from the old USSR times, unfortunately I was born in those times, we were talking about the black archaeologists, those that are doing illegal activities outside of law. For 5 years, for a long time, I've been thinking about the registry of black illegal project developers, because the issue that we have in terms of the renewable industry, that's the quality of the reports in terms of renewable energy industry. The quality of the reports exists everywhere, like all European countries with no exceptions. The quality of those reports exists in the US, by the way, where this quality assessment has actually emerged. So that kind of registry is just, we need this. It's such a vital. So I do apologize, Oksana, for mentioning, but one of the activists from Uzhhorod saying that the birds live in holes. No, no, no. Like birds experts are saying, but maybe in Crimea they can live in the holes, but in Carpathians and Borjava, because it was one point where the wind power should be erected. They can't live in whole, and Borjava is not Jankoi, and the renewable energy industry says, like, there's 800 pages. If you're building wind park, we're talking about Jankoi. So whoever was making projects just copy-pasted reports. The Jankoi went wind park, and they're so lazy to swap the title. Can you understand the absence of quality of that report? And the surface, the full surface, they were trying to roll it up and hold it somewhere. So like all biologists and ecologists understand that like no one can get this kind of soil and the ecosystems won't be able to survive. So as the eco activist, and actually what would be beneficial both for all the entities involved, the registry of those so-called black faulty project developers. But if we talk about bigger level, in Europe since 1980s, we have the throughout eco policies like education, that's also a part of it, and the throughout, and we have this hybrid unified trilateral industry ministry which wasn't able to provide the transparency. So we have economics, agriculture, and then environment. So the workers, the staff of this ministry who are within the environment we were looking at the reports and the salary pages and tariffs. They can't even, their salary is even lower than the previous one. So even within the ministry, the head of the department of economic and whatever, like some like environment, will have a smaller salary than the rest of us. And the justification is that they don't have the right to form the policy. So in this unified ministry, we have no one from the experts, like environmental experts, who's going to be forming the policy within the environmental protection. So do you get the stage we're in, the drastic state we're in? So for sure, we have to separate them. And then once we're talking with the MPs about like with those who are responsible for the Euro integration, they say that the main negotiation, we have like more than 210 directives which should be implemented. And on the European level, it's not neither from the department, no one from the department, not the deputies, but the minister should be talking about who is an expert, who has enough expertise, who should be talking and should know what he's talking about. We don't have the minister like that. We don't have the minister with the equivalent like salary level within this hybrid dry unified ministry. If we're talking about the ecological policy, that the ideas of Ms. Oksana about those dialect, the energy experts, I mean, within the energy experts, within the environment, the agricultural like areas, those they should be balanced in a way. And then the strategies, the power like energy strategy that we already have that exists, this can be more balanced within the biodiversity preservation. I feel like it's 2025. So the strategy should be simultaneous, like an overlap and cross. And those strategies in the third one, in terms of farmers, I don't know if they actually have a strategy. They should go like hand in hand, get mixed, fuse, and be throughout all of those issues, and obviously be ecologically conscious. Obviously, we are completing the draft of the project. I need to apologize about directives in terms of like birds and the rest, but there's no one who can actually manage the lands of the emerald lands that's going to be in 2020 network. So we have like a special task force for the Taras Shevchenko University for master's degree to test the course, to understand what's happening, because a lot of people are confusing the management, the so-called emerald zones, because we don't have experts on those. So the education and just the awareness is like top priority, maybe like an eco consciousness and legal consciousness, and just upholding the bills that we have, just enlightenment and education, because obviously the irreversibility of the punishment if someone is harming the environment, it doesn't educate the consciousness. For instance, I've poured some Chinese pesticides that were smuggled, poisoned human beings, bees, and so on and so forth, but I do have some kind of harvest, so no one will bring me to criminal or whatever. But if, for as long as people don't see that there is irreversible punishment for the breach of the law, not only the mental law, but in Europe they have other type of consciousness. It's like once they're worsening the state of the environment. It's not like you are breaching, you're making it worse, you're worsening the state of, it's just like the level of consciousness and eco-consciousness is quite different. You're not destroying, you're not harming, you are getting worse. It's just like consciousness, it's like we're on different planets. With those, how do you call those? all of those acronyms, all of those authorities, and they feel like in our sphere there's a lot of discretion, and they don't have it. And if they don't have it, it's the right way. But there's where the discretion is, then you have some correction factors and so on and so forth. But since we don't have discretions, and we can survive without discretion or analytical approach, and we don't have any idea like how to work with those two areas of expertise. Or once those two expertise won't be able to talk to each other, they will be putting tails in our rails to kind of, but we still have to go through all of those directives and laws, and obviously they lack that understanding. So the strategical things like throughout eco-consciousness, legal consciousness, and we have to talk with the anti-corruption authorities, those like common language, common cooperation, and then we'll succeed. For now, we're not kind of like providing this. For as long as we can't push this ice age solid thing as a nation, as people, it's going to be beneficial to start talking about the green European pathway. It's easier for us to get there without the reformation processes. As for journalists, it's easier to get to Mars than implement the European Green Course. And this very optimistic note, I would like to complete and conclude my speech. Yeah, we all will be astronauts by the end of it all. Yuri, you wanted to add something because I saw your arm. I wanted to say something about two criteria, like ecological criteria, where it's impossible to implement the speed up areas, and identify the areas that are the priority of implementing the renewable energy positioning. Unfortunately, I saw some drafts within the secretary. They have set up 4 areas of enhancement, and they set up right now that for specific criterias, while we can't implement those kind of objects in other areas. And my biggest problem is trying to find those areas is the absence of the basic fundamental data, the starting data, because we don't have any kind of monitoring, like of a higher quality monitoring, plus all the registries are being shut down just to get it. We can do it. You have to go through 10 circles and rounds of hell, and it's a big problem, just the improvement and enhancement of the assessment of the environment, and that kind of assumed that there's going to be some kind of the assessment of the activities. And this monitor nowadays, unfortunately, is being archived in some folders in the ministry, but it's not in the open access, even though it should be in open access. Like I wish it was in access, it was this accessible. That would have simplify the development of new reports on the state of the environment, of the relevant researches, and about the air, water, and all the stuff. And we could have assessed the cumulative effects, because sometimes society says that it's not relevant, it's not provide enough information on the relevant data. It would have provided us an idea to set up like an all Ukrainian database in terms of monitoring, utilize them further on for the development, some enhancement areas for the energy, because farming or just those kind of activity monitoring should have been provided in all the areas. It would have given a chance to the communities, hromadas, to do any kind of activity on their own.
Прошу.
I beg your pardon? Yeah, I would like to try to conclude this topic and clarify whether I get you right. That nowadays they're the priority to build the green generation, is sort of process. It goes through our international cooperation with the societies, and doesn't matter what was drafted, it's still gonna go through like testing. Yes, it's still there's still no law, there's still no bill how to identify those areas. I've explained that Ministry of Energy has presented the draft of the project, the recommendation directive on biogas. They're also trying to implement the changes, like three main in terms of the alternative energy and the enhancement areas or zones. But the first draft of the project, there's like a lot of there's a lot of questions from the NGOs towards that project. As far as I know, the draft project was developed by the energy experts and experts who are eco activists or like doing environmental protection work. I haven't seen those people involved. Maybe it's gonna be new updated version, but the Ministry of Energy, I mean, those they are trying to reach their goals, and environmental protection is not a priority for them. And the solidified ministry should have responded in a way, but there's no, because environment is the third priority in the list. The last one, as far as I'm tracking, in terms of reassessment of the damages done to the ecologies. But this is a very important issue or aspect of the project. In the old Ministry of Environmental Protection, we had three individuals who had three main experts who should be doing the job. And the head of the department, if I'm not mistaken, also should be taken to. But anyways, the staffing has decreased, the number of personnel has decreased, and from my personal experience, when we had the department without the head, we were given like we had enough personnel. We had like 1 or 2 days. You do understand that once you need to analyze 700 pages or just go through them, skim them, it's not as easy to do it in 2 days and then provide some kind of decision and then justify it for the heads, right? It's like best case scenario, right? But once there's like bigger reports in Kryvyi Rih, or it's like construction of some kind of preservation point is like 1,500 pages. It's even worse. So anyways, we have to divide and split the ministry. There's going to be just a ministry, there's going to be environmental protection within the focus, and balance it out, and the constant development and implement it in all Ukrainian legal acts. Yeah, and then obviously we have to discuss how it's going to go throughout all because especially nowadays we see that I would like to give the chance to have a final call. We have 15 minutes left, 12 minutes actually left, like 3 minutes to each of you. If you could say something, so like in these topics, how the society, the public, our citizens, like what can they do in those challenges? How they can support? Like what should they do in those areas? Like maybe not everyone will be able to do something, but maybe there's something you would like to share with the citizens who are listening or watching us, and maybe something that they can do, and they are worried, concerned, and they are more than willing to put their own time into our common goal.
Я би
Дозвольте,
сказала.
пані?
Вибачте, Сергій.
Ні, пані Оксано, давайте.
Я б сказала, що сьогодні
I'd
на
say
захист
that
Карпат
today, in order to protect the
об'єдналося
Carpathian
дуже
Mountains, we have lots of people that united, lots of NGOs,
правозахисних
all kinds of human rights and advocacy organizations
це дає надію
from all over Ukraine, which gives me hope
нам вдасться
that we may be able to save the most valuable high-range mountains. I believe in this.
Доведеться дуже багато ще
Of
попрацювати. Дуже
course,
багато треба
we'll have to
буде
work a lot. We'll have to communicate a lot with the Europeans.
Бо, власне, основними споживачами цієї електроенергії буде
Because
якраз
major
Україна.
consumers of this
І для
power
них
will
є
be in the
різниця,
United Europe, and they
якою
care
ціною добута та чи
what's
інша
the price
електроенергія, особливо
of
якщо ми про це
that
будемо прямо говорити.
power, in what way it was
В
generated.
будь-якому разі зелена енергетика не може
Anyway,
вважатися зеленою, якщо
renewable
вона
energy
отримана в
sources
результаті
cannot be
знищення
considered
ціноприводних
renewable or
систем.
green if
Це
they were
треба чітко артикулювати.
if this electricity was
І,
generated
власне, ми
after
мусимо
destruction of
приносити
nature.
і
So we need to
міністерства,
make
і бізнес,
ministry
і
and
депутатів
business and
чути ці
members of
аргументи.
parliament to hear
І
these
це
arguments.
теж є частиною нашого євроінтеграційного
It is
процесу.
part of our European integration
Це наша
process.
позиція,
It is our
і ми від
position,
неї не будемо відступати.
and we will not change it.
Кого запрошуєте громадян України? Чи є щось?
Я
What do you
запрошую
want
слідкувати за
the
нашою кампанією в
citizens of Ukraine to
соцмережах,
do? I want them to follow our media campaign in
висловлювати свою
social
думку. Нам
media
дуже
to
потрібна підтримка громадян України, тому що Карпати
support us, to speak out,
це національне
because the
багатство,
Carpathian
це
Mountains are
багатство всієї України, і це цінність
our
кожного
national
країни.
wealth. It is something that all Ukrainians value.
Пане Сергію, будь ласка.
Thank you, Serhiy.
Дякую. Я б сказав, що
I'd say
потрібно посилювати громадський
we
контроль
need
над
to
тими процесами, що відбуваються, в тому числі
improve
природокористування,
the
і в тому числі щодо збереження
public
довкілля,
control over use of
чому?
environment
Бо
and
лише коли
use
громадські
of
активісти,
and any matters
представники
connected
громади
to environment, because only
бачать
community
порушення
members,
або бачать
when they can see
небезпеку
any
проведення
violations or
інших
danger
проєктів,
of any
вони
projects,
повинні
they
не мовчати, а
should
вони
not be
повинні
silent.
принципово на це реагувати,
They should react.
повинні, ну, зрозуміло, що владу
Of
націлювати
course,
на
they
відповідні
should
реакції.
contact the
І в тому числі
authorities,
щодо відповідальності. Чому? Бо
and
якщо
in
не буде
particular,
цієї реакції,
it
то,
is
на
about the
жаль, і далі
responsibility.
буде продовжуватись
Without the reaction,
порушення і погіршення стану
the
довкілля.
violation
Тобто
will continue to
це
take place, and the environment
роз'яснення законодавства, це
will
роз'яснення
degrade. So we
тих
need to explain
принципів,
how the legislation
які
works,
можуть зашкодити
what are
довкіллю,
key
в тому числі
principles, key
будівництві, я
mechanisms
маю на увазі.
that
Тобто
damage
це
the environment
освіта,
and beekeeping in
поставлю
particular.
сьогодні,
So
просвітницька
education,
робота,
educational
і
work,
відповідно імплементація
and
європейських норм.
implementation
Це
of
також
European
стимулювати
norms.
майбутнє.
I think it is our future.
Тобто запрошуєте моніторити і
So invite us to monitor everything and to
Запрошуємо
participate.
до співпраці
Yes, I
спілка
invite
байдужих і спілка
everybody to
пасічників
cooperate, and
України.
Association of Beekeepers of
Прошу
Ukraine
тільки одне
is
бережіть
here
бджіл.
to ask you to
просимо,
protect
щоб
the
ви
bees.
чули. Дякую.
Yes, we understand you.
Олена, Юрію, до чого
Олена,
ви
Yuri,
громадян
would
України?
you invite Ukrainians to do?
Тоді таке, приходьте до суди з нами. Це дуже важливо. І це
Participate in court sittings together with us.
суддів психологічно,
It is,
нас не
it
двоє,
has
є
impact
четверо,
on the judges
максимально людей.
when it's not just 2 or 4 people
Спокійно, тихо, але
that
знімаємо
participate in
швидше.
court sitting,
Пишіть про суди своєю
but
мовою,
all of us
простою,
should
але
participate in
це
it.
про проблеми різні.
Write
Карпати,
about all kinds of
ОСБ.
problems,
Що вам
about bees,
подобається?
about Carpathian
Просто
Mountains,
пишіть,
whatever.
будьте
Be active
активними, щоб тема довкілля не
for the
була
topic of
вузькою
environment, not to
темою
be a niche
оцих,
topic.
хто про метелики. І не бійтеся
Oh,
писати своїми
some people
словами,
speaking about
своєю мовою.
butterflies.
Це головне. Воно вам болить, пишіть
Write
так, як воно
about
вам
it, how you
кажеться
feel
бажано.
about it,
Це
how it
перше.
hurts you.
Писати, бути активними
So,
в усіх соціальних
write,
мережах,
publish,
тому що та
be
влада,
active in
яка
social
насправді
media,
сьогодні
because
у нас
the
є,
current
це
authorities,
влада соціальних мереж.
these
Це
people
багато,
run by social media, and
це
social
залежить,
media are
вони
the
роблять
authority.
щотижневі соціологічні опитування.
You know,
У
they
них ціла група людей,
hold
яка моніторить всі соціальні мережі. Вкрай важливо
weekly
рефлексувати
interviews, and it's great to react to anything published by people that protect environment, because the government monitors the social media and they respond to current topics. We need to be supported, we need to go further, we should realize that we are not alone. I've spoken about social media and courts, so consultations. We are open to all kinds of consultations on violation of environmental protection legislation. We always support you, we provide consultations. National police works on cases of making fires in fields. If people burn something unnecessary in their field, call the police, they will respond. If trees are cut, if trees are maintained in their own way, if, as it happens in Голосіїв National Park, Рильський Park, if trees are covered with some rope parks, fight against this, fight for protection of forests, fight for small lakes, small rivers, call the police, use our hotlines, write to us, do care, love nature, use the minimal efforts, in particular if the environmental protection movement has some people, some groups. The more people are united, the more effective we are. You know, the ocean is made out of drops of water, and each of you is just a small drop, but we act together, and we would be able to restore the Ministry of Environment. It will help us to present our case in the court to save forests from fires in Zhytomyrsky Oblast. Just make calls. Don't just stand aside. Be some kind of a storm, okay? Don't be professional. Don't say I'm not a legal expert. It's not necessary. Promote your own opinion. If you can see the violation, respond, react the way you can. This is the way you can work. Just sign the petition to restore the Ministry of Environment. Thank you, Helena. Thank you for all the materials you shared. People asked us to share the links where to sign everything. You have a few more moments. Please share the links. As far as I understand, there is a petition to restore an independent Ministry of Environment and Ecology. You may share the link for people to sign this petition. Yuri, what's your invitation for people to participate?
Тут складно після пані Олени буде щось додати.
It's difficult to add anything
Насправді,
about
будьте
after Miss Elena.
проактивними.
Be
В
proactive.
будь-який спосіб, який ви
Don't
хочете
ignore this.
вірити і бачите, що він правильний. Є сенс
Don't be inactive.
написати
Don't be
допис,
passive.
пишете допис в Facebook,
Of course,
виділяєте,
publish
хештеги робите на
Posts in
міністра,
social
на
media,
президента, я не знаю, це в будь-якому випадку. Вони це
tag
моніторять, це
Minister,
справді
Prime
так, і
Minister.
потім
They do actually monitor the social media. They discuss it. It is the way for you to act. If you can write to the police or to the state ecological inspection, appeal to them, appeal to the NGOs, environmental NGOs, they may help you. They will react to your problems or needs. Be proactive. It's the main thing for the environment. Thank you. And in the chat, there is a petition to restore the Ministry of Environment. Please sign it. You may also join NGOs You may offer them your volunteer support, shared events. They may invite some public figures, and we may continue with these discussions. Thank you for this panel. It is Saturday evening panel. I'm very grateful to all of you that you spared 2 more hours from your life to the protection of the environment. I hope you'll be able to have some rest tomorrow for you to restore your capacity, because I think that such strong people need to restore their capacity, have strong batteries to restore. So do that. I'm grateful to all the participants, to people online, and to everybody who will follow this meeting in the recording. Then please meet those people that protect environment in Ukraine for many years. Thank you. Have a good evening.